Now the question is, what is Toba Tek Singh? Is he a person? No, it is a place. It is a place in Pakistan. His family members were the only people he would expect the right answer from, because nobody would tell it. He wanted to know whether Toba Tek Singh belonged to India or Pakistan. Hello, hi, namaste and welcome to Vidhyaashram, first grade college, the temple of excellence. I am Nandakishore, faculty of English in Vidhyaashram, MYSURU. In my previous session, I was discussing about one of the processes prescribed to first semester B.A. and B.C.A. MYSURU University. The prose is titled as Toba Tek Singh, written by Sadat Manto, basically from India but lived in Pakistan and died there. And in my previous session, I had discussed that one of the persons in Asylum had given up his chores and had climbed up the tree, deciding that he is going to live on top of it because he was not sure whether he is in India or Pakistan. So let us see what happens in today's session. So that fellow, he was threatened, he was made aware that he will be punished, and that is when he decides that he is going to live on top of the tree. When he was finally persuaded to come down, somehow they convinced him to come down, he began embracing his Sikh and Hindu friends, tears running down his cheeks, fully convinced that they were about to leave him and go to India. Now, this had happened maybe in the present province of Pakistan, and he writes, the author writes, that he was sure this fellow was a Muslim. It gives a hint that he was a Muslim, and he came down and hugged his friends, Sikh and Hindu, and started crying. When he writes these words, it shows the bondage between Muslims and Hindus and Sikh or whoever it might be. Think about it. You are not aware that you belong to some other country, but still you have developed a bondage. And though there is agitation, though there is anger, though there is enmity between two countries, but internally down the lane, below the bottom line, people are so happy because they want to treat each other with human feelings. The tears would come down or come out or roll down your cheeks only when you have true feelings. Yes? And that shows what sort of bondage they had developed. A Muslim radio engineer, now this is a different account, a Muslim radio engineer who had an MSc degree and never mixed with anyone, this is very important, never mixed with anyone, given as he was to taking long walks by himself all the day. He took all his clothes off. Now, he never mingled. What he did was, he took off all his clothes, gave the bundle to one of the attendants and ran into the garden stark naked. Think about this line. First of all, they are in Asylum, sort of a place where the mentally ill people are taken care, and they have gone to such an extreme level. Think about it. They are not able to digest what they are hearing, what they are seeing. What is the result? Where he strips his clothes and goes to the garden stark naked. He runs helter-skelter. And continue, and the author writes, a Muslim lunatic from Chinaud, where this is a present place in Pakistan, who used to be one of the most devoted workers of the All India Muslim League and obsessed with bathing himself 15 or 16 times a day. This is very important. They can ask you for 1 mark. Bathing himself 15 or 16 times a day, had suddenly stopped doing that and announced his name was Muhammad Ali. And that he was Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. He went on to declare himself to be the Governor General. And how many times did he bathe? 15 or 16 times a day, not a week, a day. This had led a Sikh inmate to declare himself Master Tara Singh. Again, 1 mark a question, possibly. Now, in the previous paragraph, you read that one of the inmates had shed his tears. He was emotionally weak. He was going to miss his friends. But in the next paragraph, immediately you see this, and he says that one of the fellows, a Muslim lunatic, declares himself to be Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and the Sikh fellow declares that he is Master Tara Singh. And what follows next? The leader of the Sikhs, apprehending serious communal trouble, the authorities declared them dangerous. See, it is perfect mixture of group. It is a people who are having different mentality. Few have developed a positive attitude towards each other, no matter what background they have, what religion they belong to, what color they are. On the other hand, people are so much into this religion community that they are making this damaging statement. And don't you think just because of people like this, today we are in a state where we hate each other? Where we are here in our country, they are in their country starting to hate each other. To what level? To the maximum level. And he says, authorities, they took this issue seriously and decided this is going to be something wrong, something terrible. So let us just separate them and put them in different cells. And next, there was a young Hindu lord. There is recollection of pictures, recollection of incidents where Sadat Manto is writing and is reaching the readers. So these are different incidents he has recorded. There was a young Hindu lord. He was a lawyer from Lahore, present Pakistan, but then belonged to India, from Lahore, who had gone off his head after an unhappy love affair. He was in love and it was very unhappy. When he was told that Amritsar was to become a part of India. Remember, most of the provinces in Punjab provinces was divided actually, right? And it was declared back then that Amritsar, present Golden Temple where it resides, Amritsar was to become a part of India. He went into a depression because his beloved lived in Amritsar, but he was living in Lahore, which then was a part of India, but which later shifted to Pakistan. Now he was in Lahore and she was in Amritsar. It's because of that it was very disturbing, and he went into depression because his beloved lived in Amritsar. Something he had not forgotten even in his madness. Remember, he is already mad, but he knew that his beloved, which shows the intensity of his love. Though he is unhappy, maybe the broken marriage or broken affair had led him to become mad, but he knew, he had remembered, because it was such an intense love. He had not forgotten even in his madness. That day, he abused every major and minor Hindu and Muslim leader who had cut India into two, turning his beloved into an Indian and him into a Pakistani. Of course, because he is residing in Lahore, maybe the ancestral property or the occupation or whatever it might be, the consequences or whatever it might be that he owns, that he is not able to come back to Amritsar now, which belongs to India. Let us see what happens. When news of the exchange reached the Asylum, his friends offered him congratulations. We are talking about the same person there, love affair. And his friends offered him congratulations because he was now to be sent to India. He should be happy because he is coming back to his beloved, but is he going to be happy? Let us see. the country of his beloved. However, he declared that he had no intention of leaving Lahore. Why? Because his practice would not flourish in Amritsar. And what was he? He was a lawyer. Remember, he was a lawyer, and he decides not to go back to Amritsar. He decides to stay in Lahore itself. There were two Anglo-Indian lunatics. Now, this is different. Two Anglo-Indian half-bred, cross-bred, Anglo-Indian lunatics, or maybe this could also mean English who are residing in India who have turned mad, or possibly the Indian who is born for English. Remember, Britishers, wherever they colonized, they had offsprings. Anglo-Indian lunatics, he calls lunatics, in the European world, when told that the British had decided to go home after granting independence to India, they went into a state of deep shock and were seen conferring each other. Yes, maybe this is like talking up, conferring each other in whispers the entire afternoon. They were like bit shocked. Possibly this word would be so much soothing, comforting for those kind of people, because they neither belong to India nor to British. So possibly they had a bit of comfort. But now, out of that shock, they are like discussing, are we going to stay here or Pakistan or where? Because they belong to the land nowhere. Now, they were worried about their changed status after independence. Now it is clear, the changed status, they have a status of independence. Would there be a European ward or would it be abolished? They have a separate cell, as I told you, and after Britishers leave, will there be so much of comfort? We don't know. Would breakfast continue to be served, or would they have to subsist on bloody Indian chapati? Subsist to live or to exist or to bear on bloody Indian chapati. They call it bloody Indian chapati, possibly the heights of British rule, imperialism. And then there was another inmate. Now we are pitching into the main picture. There was another inmate, a Sikh, who had been confined for the last 15 years, locked up for the last 15 years. Whenever he spoke, it was the same mysterious gibberish. Yes, the lines go like this. Upar te gurgur the annex the Vedayana, the mang the dal of the Laltan. It sounds so funny when we read it because we can't even understand even a single word there. And every time he spoke, imagine he told his words with bit of modification, and God said he had not slept a wink in 15 years. Very difficult. Not slept. Yes, lying down. Occasionally, he could be observed leaning against a wall, but the rest of the time, he was always to be found standing. Imagine, he never slept. He was 15 years. How would you stand? And what was the consequence? Because of this, his legs were permanently swollen. Yes, something that did not appear to bother him at all. It didn't bother him. Recently, he had started to listen carefully to discussions about the forthcoming exchange of India and Pakistan lunatics. Now, recently, he had been observing, maybe he was just living in his own world, but recently, it says very recently, since this heated arguments are going on and discussed, he started to observe, listen to carefully about India and Pakistan exchanging lunatical policy. When asked his opinion, he observed solemnly, yes, keenly, and he says, Upar te Gurugur the annex the Vedayana, the mang the dal of the government of Pakistan. He just modifies bit of words there, and we still don't know. We don't know. And maybe even the people who were with him didn't know what it meant. And let us see what happens. Of late, however, the government of Pakistan had been replaced by the government of Toba Tek Singh. Now the question is, what is Toba Tek Singh? Is he a person? No. It is a place. It is a place in Pakistan. Now the government of Pakistan was replaced by the government of Toba Tek Singh, a small town in the Punjab which was his home. There is a place called Punjab as well in Pakistan, present Pakistan, and that was replaced by government of Pakistan, Toba Tek Singh. And this fellow, a Sikh, remember, he is from Punjab, which was his home. He had also begun inquiring where Toba Tek Singh was to go. Not the fellow, but will this be a part of India or Pakistan? Who is going to answer this? Let us see that. However, nobody was quite sure whether it was in India and Pakistan or Pakistan. Yes? Let us see now. Those who had tried to solve this mystery had become utterly confused. This mystery of what? Whether Toba Tek Singh, the place, belonged to Pakistan or India. Utterly confused when told Sailcoat, which used to be in India, was now in Pakistan. Sailcoat was in India back then, but now it is in Pakistan. It was nobody's guess what was going to happen to Lahore. Very important. Which was currently in Pakistan. Currently, maybe back then, and it still remained there, but could slide into India any moment. Look at the confusion state here. Amritsar, it belonged to India. Lahore, it went to Pakistan. Yes, and Toba Tek Singh, which was in Punjab, which belonged to India, it went to Pakistan. So there is a confusion with main states or main districts, but could slide into India any moment. It was also possible that the entire subcontinent of India might become Pakistan. Subcontinent. Some places of India would become Pakistan. And who could say if both India and Pakistan might not entirely vanish from the map of the world one day? Look at this confusion. Who knows? We are fighting that this place should go there and that place should come here. And Sadat writes, these two places, two countries, it might go off, might not entirely vanish. Yes, or may not. Might not entirely vanish from the map of the world one day. It may happen or may not. And then he writes, the old man's hair, he is discussing about the Sikh, remember, who is from Toba Tek Singh. The old man's hair was almost gone, bald, and what little was left had become a part of the beard. So long, part of the beard, so long, giving him a strange, even frightening appearance. Of course, if anybody has lost his hair and whatever is left would be like, growing so long and it looks like a part of beard, which would be very frightening. However, he was a harmless fellow. He was a harmless fellow and had never been known to get into fights. He was never known to get into fights. So calm, though he looked frightened, older attendants at the asylum said that he was a fairly prosperous landlord from Toba Tek Singh. Fairly prosperous. He was a landlord and he was from a background like where it's like, good to do family. From Toba Tek Singh, who had quite suddenly gone mad. We don't know what is the cause, what is the reason. Had gone mad suddenly. His family had brought him in, bound and fettered. Fettered, shackled. Like that was 15 years ago. He's there in the asylum since 15 years. And once a month, he used to have visitors. But since the start of communal troubles in the Punjab, they had stopped coming. So once in a while, maybe once a month, he had visitors. And in Punjab, remember the communal fights, it already began. It had begun right from 1947, soon after the independence. His real name was B.C.A. Singh. Remember, Toba Tek Singh is not a person, but it is a place where a person has come and that person is discussed in this prose. And what was his name? Who had been living in the asylum since 15 years. His name is B.C.A. Singh. He is from Punjab. And the place, the basic place or the real place is Toba Tek Singh. But everybody called him Toba Tek Singh. Remember why we are talking about Toba Tek Singh now? His name is B.C.A. Singh. But everybody called him Toba Tek Singh since he was from this place. He lived in a kind of limbo. Limbo, like maybe for himself. Yes. Oblivion. Is not so clear about what he is saying, or he doesn't want anybody to let into his life. Having no idea what day of the week it was, or month, or how many years had passed since his confinement. He was not aware about anything. Totally obscure, not clear. However, he had developed a sixth sense. This is very important. Developed a sixth sense about the day of the visit, when he used to bathe himself, soap his body, oil and comb his hair and put on clean clothes. He never said a word during these meetings except occasional outbursts of the same words. And remember, he had a sixth sense that somebody would visit me today, and that sixth sense worked very well because he used to take bath, bathe himself, soap his body, oil and comb his hair, and he was expecting some visitors. And he never spoke anything except the sudden outbursts of Upar te Guru the annex te Bedayan, the mang the dal of the Laltain. The same words which he kept telling. Now, what does it mean? When he was first confined, he had left an infant daughter behind. 15 years back, infant daughter behind. He had a daughter. Now, a pretty young girl of 15. Now, she's 15 years old. She would come occasionally and sit in front of him with tears rolling down her cheeks. In the strange world that he inhabited, hers was just another face. Nobody cared. She would come down once in a while, and every time she came, she used to sit in front of him, shed her tears, and nobody cared for her pain. Since the start of this India-Pakistan caboodle, yes, it is a lot, he had got into the habit of asking fellow inmates where exactly Toba Tek Singh was without receiving a satisfactory answer, because nobody knew. Now, all his concern was, where did this Toba Tek Singh place fall? Is it falling in the place of Pakistan or in the boundary of India? And nobody answered him satisfactorily. There was not even a single person who told, yes, it is going to be in India or in Pakistan. Nobody told it because nobody knew. The visits had also suddenly stopped. It stopped. He was increasingly restless. The visit, in the sense, nobody started visiting him. Everything stopped because there was so much of fight, outburst of this India-Pakistan fight. He was increasingly restless, but more than that, curious. More than that, he was curious. The sixth sense, which used to alert him to the day of the visit, had also atrophied. Atrophied, decreased. No, slowly, gradually coming up. Even the sixth sense stopped working. He missed his family, the gifts they used to bring and the concern with which they used to speak of him. He started missing it. He was sure they would have told him whether Toba Tek Singh was in India or Pakistan, because his family members were the only people he would expect the right answer from? Because nobody would tell it. He also had a feeling that they came from Toba Tek Singh. He had a feeling because he was not sure. He has been locked up in asylum since 15 years, and who knows, out of these 15 years, all these 15 years, possibly they might have moved to Pakistan or present India, because he never knew anything that happened outside the world. Now, where he used to have his home, one of the inmates had declared himself God. Remember, somebody declared that I am Muhammad Ali Jinnah, that I am Singh, yes, Toba Tek Singh, whatever it might be. And there is one lunatic, one fellow, he declares himself to be the God. B.C.A. Singh asked him one day if Toba Tek Singh was in India or Pakistan. The man chuckled. He says, ah ha ha, right? Chuckling is like, giving a smile. The man chuckled, neither in India nor in Pakistan, because so far we have issued no orders in this respect. He says, neither it is in India nor in Pakistan. Still it is a pending place. The discussion is going on whether to send it, whether to put this province in the borders of Pakistan or in India. And he says, neither in India nor in Pakistan, because so far we have issued no orders. B.C.A. Singh begged God to issue, God, very important, God in the sense man, to issue the necessary orders so that his problem could be solved. What is the problem? He wanted to know whether Toba Tek Singh belonged to India or Pakistan. But he was disappointed as God appeared to be preoccupied, completely busy, preoccupied with more pressing matters, more pressing, complicated issues, India and Pakistan issue. Finally, he told him angrily, now, you proclaimed yourself to be the God. I'm very angry on you. And he says, Upar te Gurgur, the annex the mang the dal of Guruji ka kalsa and Guruji ki fateh, jo bole so nihal sat sri akal. We don't know what it says, but now he writes, what he wanted to say was, you don't answer my prayers because you are a Muslim God. Look at the way he blames, because the fellow, the person who proclaimed, who declared himself to be the God, happens to be Muslim. And he says, you don't answer my prayers because you are a Muslim God. Had you been a Sikh God, you would have been more of a sport. More of a sport? You would have been more of enthusiastic, and possibly you would go on blessing each and everybody's prayers. But you don't, because you are a Muslim God. He is totally angry. And these words mean the phrase of this, the answer. And let us see what he does. Will he receive the answer or will he not? Let us see that in my next session. I will be meeting you in my next session. Until then, keep reading. Have a good day. Take care.